Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the witnesses for being here and for your service to our country. Wanted to ask Colonel Levitt whether you had any experience with the Special Victims Counsel in the Air Force, the pilot program.
Yes, Senator, I've spoken with one of my prosecutors is a Special Victims Counsel and spoken in broad terms. And he said that it has been very well received, and truly it gives victims a voice. It gives them an understanding of how the process works. It makes them feel like someone is on their side to help them through the process, for them to understand what options they have available.
Because one of the issues we're struggling with is if you look at the recent SAPRO report, one of the real fundamental issues is that some people aren't coming forward because they have expressed that they've heard other victims talk about a negative experience of the situation that they went through. So I wanted to get the impression from the other branches, if you've got any understanding what the Air Force program is and what your thought is of their program of having a Special Victims Counsel represent victims within the system.
Thank you, Senator. I'll go next. In the Army, we have a Special Victims Unit. That Special Victims Unit is made up of a sexual assault investigator. It's also made up of a Special Victims Prosecutor, and it's also in coordination with a Victim Witness Liaison. All of these resources are available to the victim to help them through the process, establish a rapport, which is actually the foundation of our investigation, and then it works very, very well. And the interview techniques that we've developed in the Army called the FETI technique, where we use a lot of different questioning techniques. I think that word has spread because I guess, I watched the Invisible War too. And so the CID agent in the Invisible War talks about how we had a mantra where we tried to prove when we were talking to the victim, you disprove it, that something didn't happen. Now we don't do that. We don't take that approach. And we spend so much time with the victim establishing a rapport, I think that spreads. And so we have more reporting. We also see an uptick in victims who initially did a restricted report now come forward and want to do an unrestricted report.
So, Colonel, the one thing I will say is what the Air Force has is that the individuals that would be the advocate in the Army, are they trained lawyers? I mean, meaning that their pilot has trained lawyers helping victims. So do you have the same thing happening in the Army and other branches?
Yes, Senator. We have a Special Victims Prosecutor who is a trained attorney.
And they represent the person with the same authority as the Special Victims Counsel?
Yes, Senator.
Well, I'd like to understand if you can give me some more information about that, because I understood Senator Murray and I have a bill that extends what the Air Force is doing to every single branch. It has 33 co-sponsors in the United States Senate. And it was our understanding that the Air Force had this pilot. So if there are similar programs in other branches, I would like to get more information on that, because our understanding is that the Air Force pilot really had somewhat of unique standing in the services.
I will certainly provide that to you, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator, just one thing to add in terms of our process. The Special Victims Counsel is separate from the prosecution chain, so they are not part of the prosecution for that sexual assault. They are there purely for support for the victim.
Well, that's a huge difference. So, of course, absolutely. In fact, if you're in the prosecution chain, then you have a different purpose than if you're there just to solely advocate for the victim. And, who may have a different opinion on the plea result in a case, who may want their counsel to express that opinion to the prosecutor who has a different, and so victims having their own voice is really important. It's something that has happened in certainly the civilian sector. So I appreciate your clarifying that distinction for me, because my vision of it, as I didn't understand it for how it works in the Army, is much more what happens in the Air Force, because I think victims can have very different feelings about a disposition. And also, if they feel they're part of if they're just treated within the prosecution, that's different than someone representing just their interests.